So when I was setting up for my Howard the Duck video, I was trying to find a movie poster that would reflect what I was talking about. And for some reason I was like, oh yeah, Thor Ragnarok. I was like, yeah, that's totally fine. That's close enough to what I'm talking about. But I have a Guardians of the Galaxy poster. Howard the Duck is in that movie. Oh, I don't know what I was thinking. Hello, I'm Jackson McMurray, and you still might know me from the No Nerds Allowed podcast. And I'm back. I'm doing another one, part 2. I just wanted to start out this video by saying, hey Marvel? Last video, I spent a whole lot of time talking about how Howard the Duck was the first Marvel movie ever made. But then right after I finished making that video, you decided to put Conan the Barbarian in the Avengers. So I don't know, now I look like a dumbass. That movie came out way before Howard the Duck. Why would you do that to me? You're ruining my reputation. And that's true, by the way. There's going to be a new Avengers series that has Wolverine and the Punisher and Venom and Conan the Barbarian. And it's called the Savage Avengers, which is hilarious. Savage, dude. It's the Savage Avengers. This is nothing. I don't think I'm actually going to make a video about Conan the Barbarian, unless I need like a Christmas special or something. So the next Marvel movie on our chronological list is going to be Blade, because for some reason it took us a really long time to start making Marvel movies about superheroes. Eric Brooks, or Blade for short, I've had this... Oh, do I gotta start over? I've had the waveform on my computer. We're gonna ignore it, because I liked the Savage joke too much. Eric Brooks, or Blade for short, was a character in Marv Wolfman and Gene Colan's long-running Tomb of Dracula series. He was a badass vampire hunter with cool glasses who was half vampire himself, and it was the coolest shit in the world in 1973. Eric is one half vampire because while he was being born, his mother was bitten by a vampire, making him precisely one half vampire. I don't make the rules, I just work here. For a little bit in the 90s, there was a big team-up event between Blade and his buddies from Tomb of Dracula and Ghost Rider and Doctor Strange called Birth of the Midnight Suns. And god damn what I wouldn't give to see a movie of that in the 21st century. But anyway, Blade is generally not one of Marvel's most popular characters. I'm honestly not super familiar with a lot of his stories, and from what I've found, that's mostly because he's also not super popular with Marvel writers. In the Marvel canon, Blade has a relatively scant number of comic book appearances compared to other popular characters. And it seems like most people are pretty much in agreement that the film version of Blade is pretty much the definitive version. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing going on with him in Marvel Comics. A little while ago in 2014, Al Ewing did some really interesting stuff in his Mighty Avengers series. And this year, one of the big Avengers stories is called War of the Vampires. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that Blade is absolutely not dead. There's still plenty of interesting things going on with him in the modern day. But what about this definitive Blade? His glasses are not as cool. That's for dang sure. Let's just cut the shit and dig right into it. And just fair warning, this movie takes a lot of joy in presenting like some real gross out, gory violence in it. And it's so much part of the DNA that I can't really work around it in a video like this. So if you're squeamish, just be warned that there might be some shit coming up in this video. As far as I can tell, this movie was very well received in 1997, or just at least very well received by Roger Ebert. But I gotta say, it hasn't really aged tremendously well. The biggest thing that sticks out to me is the action. We just want totally different things out of an action movie in the modern day than we did in the late 90s. Modern action movies, at least the good ones, love to show you everything. They put action in as long of a shot as possible. Cuts are rare and economical, and the choreography is practical and realistic. We like to see the fight take a physical toll on the characters involved in it. And Blade doesn't really have any of that.
Hey! I'm gonna rip your fucking head off!
In this movie, Wesley Snipes plays a character who's badass, bulletproof, and totally capable of mowing down vampires wholesale with a shotgun and a throwing star. I mean, look at this. He just killed like 100 vampires. He doesn't have a speck of blood on him. The very first sequence of this movie is Blade crashing a vampire blood rave / orgy, I guess. And boy, it's really just something. And I gotta say, even though it doesn't really fit in with our modern filmmaking techniques for action, it's still pretty fun to just watch somebody kick ass for a little while.
I'm getting a little tired of chopping you up. Thought I might try fire for a change.
Blade pins this guy to a wall and lights him on fire. And then later, his corpse, I'm putting corpse in air quotes because we all know this fucker's not dead. His corpse ends up at a morgue where it jumps back to life and bites this hot woman, at which point Blade swoops in, kills the vampire, and takes one look at that hot girl and says, "Oh, she reminds me of my mom who died when I was a newborn, so I'm gonna take her back to my lair and save her, try to treat her vampirism, which I guess I don't normally do." Sure, fine, yeah, whatever. This movie seems really hell-bent on having a whole lot of, like, Oedipal subtext in everything that it does. Like, who am I to get in the way of that? You do you. When he takes her home, we're introduced to Blade's buddy, who helps him out before missions and supplies him with gear and anti-vampire paraphernalia. And after they treat this girl, whose name is Karen, by the way, they do maybe my favorite line in this whole movie, where he gives her something that he calls vampire mace.
Here. Vampire mace. Silver nitrate, essence of garlic.
Like, why doesn't regular mace work on vampires? I don't understand it. And then later in the movie, when they use it, it does this to a vampire. Which is not what mace does. Why would you make something like that and describe it as mace? Anyway, that's not important. I just think that's hilarious. But around here, Blade's buddy gives Karen a single silver bullet and tells her that if she thinks she's becoming a vampire, she should use it on herself. Honestly, my biggest real beef with this movie is this extremely black and white sense of morality it deals in. The whole movie, we're told so explicitly that vampire bad, people good, but it just doesn't make any sense. Are we supposed to believe that if Karen becomes a vampire, she'll suddenly just be evil? That there's no such thing as a person who turns into a vampire that uses their powers for good or isn't part of this horrible vampire cabal? What's different about Blade that makes him the only vampire good guy? But that's a big, complicated question that this movie provides absolutely no answers to, so I'm totally prepared to just move on. Karen becomes this movie's audience surrogate and turns Blade into an exposition machine as they roll around killing vampires in the city at night.
He's a familiar. That's a glyph.
Oh, great, now you're robbing him.
How do you think that we fund this organization, huh? Deacon Frost. We've been tracking him for a long time.
I know this place. It's a blood bank.
Owned by vampires, and there's one in every city, and they always deliver.
There's also this really great bit where Blade just kicks the shit out of this white police officer because he needs information from him, and then pulls a gun on him in broad daylight on this crowded street. I don't know, the 90s were a different time, I guess. And this is not important, but there's also this bit I just really want everyone to see where there's a car chase that they filmed just driving around a city and then sped up the footage.
I got a delivery to Frost here, and I just had a run-in with Blade. Gotta clear out that clinic on Hilbert now!
That fucking slays me every time. That's so funny to me. So in this movie, there are two kinds of vampires. There are humans who are turned into vampires, and there are people who were born vampires. And the people who were born vampires, they call pureblood vampires. And our main villain is introduced around this time. His name is Deacon Frost, and he's sick and tired of all the pureblood vampires acting like they're better than him.
Who are you? To challenge our ways. You're not even a pure blood.
Basically just think Harry Potter, except if the protagonist of the Harry Potter series was a badass muggle assassin who was bent on destroying all wizards. But Deacon Frost wants to take his rightful place in the world by using Blade's blood in an ancient vampire ritual to summon a blood god, because Blade is the chosen one. It's just... yeah.
Or maybe I'm just the first to say out loud what we've all been thinking.
And, you know, a whole bunch of other stuff happens. Eventually, Blade's buddy gets killed by vampires. And we have this really emotional scene where Wesley Snipes just totally forgets to act.
Walk the fuck away.
Another little bit in this movie that just cracks me up is that Blade spends the entire first part of this scene just like awkwardly dabbing at his neck wounds while he's talking. And it it just cracks me up. Like, it plays like he's just an awkward little kid who doesn't know what to do with his hands. But anyway, eventually Karen invents a cure for vampirism. But it only cures you if you were a human turned vampire, I think. If you're a full-blood vampire, then it just does this to you. Gross. But even this gnarly juice isn't enough to keep Blade from still being captured and for them to use his blood in that ancient ritual. Around that time, he also discovers that his mom is still alive. And not only is she still alive, she's still young and hot. And has been sleeping with Deacon Frost for a while. So that's some shit.
Here we are. One big happy fucking family.
I love that little plot twist. It just cracks me up. Like, I could just imagine the writers in the late 90s being like, we gotta give it some more. We need something to push this scene over the edge, you know? Like, what if he found out that Deacon Frost fucked his mom? We really need to, like, crank this up. Take it to the next level, you know? What if he fucked his mom? What if the bad guy fucked his mom? And, like, also, just remember what I was saying earlier about Oedipal subtext. Here you go.
Try to understand, Eric. Your mother died a long time ago. I've hunted. I've killed. And I've enjoyed it.
Gross. Anyway, after Deacon Frost finally embodies this ancient blood god, they have a sword fight at the end with hilarious special effects. Blade eventually wins the day by just pumping him full of anti-vampire juice until his whole shit just explodes.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
And yeah, you get the idea. Gross. This movie is very much just like a schlocky late 90s action flick. It's totally in line with other movies like The Mummy or Fast and Furious. Just like super cheesy movies that take themselves super seriously. And it's so interesting how popular those kinds of movies were like 15 years ago. But if that kind of movie came out now, I don't think people would really be very into it anymore. But I don't know, maybe we're just spoiled. Maybe this would be a lot more exciting to us if we didn't have Tom Cruise literally jumping out of an airplane to film Mission Impossible. Or a 13-minute long one-take action sequence in a TV show in the last calendar year. But the one thing that this movie really has going for it that those things I mentioned don't is just like a certain sense of glee. And, you know, even though I probably won't remember anything about this movie as soon as I publish this video, it doesn't change the fact that I, like, cackled with joy at least 4 times watching it, because it was just so funny. And not even in an insulting way, just like in a, I'm having a great time kind of way.
I got 2 new hands, Blade. I don't know which one to use to kill you with.
Blade is the kind of movie that I can't imagine is hardly anybody's favorite movie of all time, but I'm willing to bet pretty much everybody who saw it cracked a smile at least once. And, you know, at the end of the day, isn't that kind of what it's all about? Isn't that what we're all here for? At the end of the day, think about it. Think on that for a little while. It's not a movie that I ever expect to return to, but I'm really glad that I watched it. And I'm also really glad to be making a video on YouTube about something that's not Howard the Duck for once in my goddamn life. The next episode of Study in Marvel is going to be what I consider to be the first true Marvel superhero movie, which is Bryan Singer's X-Men. Which, boy, it's really going to be a trip to look back on that in the year 2019. So make sure that you come back next time, because I'm very excited about it, and I hope that you are as well. So I'll see you next time on the podcast, and I'll see you next time on the video, and you know what? I don't like this outro at all. I'll see you all next time.